Anamorphic lenses. Do you need one? Should you buy one? And are the ones from Freewell any good? Hi everyone, it's Dan here from You Rock We Drone. I do all sorts of drone related stuff, recently more focused on product reviews and also how to make money with your drone so that you can buy more products for your drone. If that makes any sense and that rocks your boat as well, I'd highly recommend to hit the little red button down below. But for today, we are going to talk about anamorphic lenses and anamorphic drone footage, which I'm quite excited about. So the company Freewell was so kind to send me over two of their amazing anamorphic/ND filter lenses. One is already on the drone here, that's the ND8, and then they also sent me over an ND16. So thanks to Freewell for sending these over. But first, I want to talk about what anamorphic lenses are and what they do. So what is an anamorphic lens? Originally, they were developed to fit widescreen footage onto a standard normal 35mm film. Well, speaking of originally, it was actually first invented by a gentleman called Henry Chrétien. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. During World War I to provide military tanks with a 180-degree view. Anyhow, cinematographers all over the world really love it because it gives your footage a very unique look. And what's so unique about it? Two things actually. One is that you get the aforementioned widescreen view, so you fit more data onto your footage and it gives it this classic, typical, epic Hollywood kind of look and feel. And then the other thing, because of the curved way that they're built, if light hits the lens, it kind of gets distorted a little bit and creating these really cool, unique lens flares. And yes, they can be mimicked in post, but it's really not the same and it looks much, much cooler and much more original when they come directly out of the lens. Now, do you need one and should you buy one? Well, it depends actually. If you do really care about making your footage as cinematic as possible and give it a little bit more of a professional touch, then yes, these things are definitely something to consider. However, in order to do that though, you do need to de-squeeze your footage in post. I actually did a comparison between the Freewell ND anamorphic filter lens and a classic Polar Pro ND filter, well, variable ND filter, but still ND filter. And I did not de-squeeze my anamorphic footage and everything looked really weird. You need to figure out what the de-squeeze factor is of your particular anamorphic lens. Now, for the ones from Freewell, the de-squeeze factor is 1.15. Basically, you take whatever comes after the dot and you subtract that from 100. That leaves you with 85. All you have to do is like put your footage into whatever video editing software you prefer using and then go to the Y scale and then you just scale it down to 85% and bada boom, you have successfully de-squeezed your footage. Now, yes, I know there's a more elaborate and professional ways of de-squeezing your anamorphic footage, but I think that grants a whole video in and of itself. If you're interested, let me know down below. Which actually brings me to my next point, which is if you don't want to do any work or any more work in your post-processing process after you're done flying a drone, then this may not be the right choice for you because as a matter of fact, like the footage gets, or yeah, your content or whatever you're recording gets squeezed during record time. So if you don't de-squeeze it afterwards and you make the same mistakes that I do, then basically your footage becomes useless or it will just look really, really weird and not cool at all. So if you don't want to do any work afterwards at all, may not be the right choice for you. Now, what about the Freewell ones? Are they any good and are they worth buying? Now, in my opinion, I think they're awesome because they combine two things, as I've mentioned before. They combine an ND filter and they give you the anamorphic lens. So I was lucky enough to have received the ND16 here and the ND8. And I would use the ND16 during like really bright daylight situations. But in general, I prefer to avoid flying in that type of light and rather wait for the golden hour and the colors to change, which is when I would use the ND 8, which by the way is the equivalent of an f-stop reduction of 3, and ND16 would be an f-stop reduction of 4. The build quality is really good, and in my opinion it's really worth it. They clip on really sturdily onto the camera of the DJI MAVIC Air 2, and the gimbal is still able to perform the gimbal initialization during the drone's startup phase. One little caveat though is that the standard DJI MAVIC Air 2 gimbal protector doesn't fit on the gimbal or the camera anymore with the anamorphic lens installed. Basically, you can't close it, and that's just simply because the anamorphic lens is so much deeper than any ordinary ND filter. So that's something to keep in mind, but a different gimbal protector shouldn't cost you that much on Amazon if you decided to just keep it on all the time. So are the anamorphic filters from Freewell any good? Yes, absolutely. I did my comparison video where I compared it to the Polar Pro standard ND filter, and I have to say, if you don't do my mistakes and you de-squeeze your footage properly, then you get definitely the same type of quality, but obviously you have a little bit more widescreen and therefore more content in your footage. I'll put the comparison up again, this time properly de-squeezed, so you can see for yourself there's virtually no difference in quality between a Polar Pro, or in this case Polar Pro variable ND filter, and the Freewell anamorphic ND filter. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this was helpful. Links to all the filters and lenses are down below in the description if you want to pick one up for yourself, and I will see you next week.